Hello and welcome back to Rapid Report, your go-to source for in-depth analysis and up-to-the-minute updates on the stories that matter most. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most talked about topics in American politics, former President Donald Trump, and the ongoing debate around impeachment, accountability, and political consequences. While headlines across social media may suggest that Trump is on the verge of removal from office, the truth is far more complex. Multiple impeachment resolutions have been filed in the House, with some charging obstruction of justice, corruption, abuse of power, and even tyranny. But documentation alone does not equal action. And right now, the political alignment required to enforce removal simply does not exist. In this video, we'll break down the legal mechanisms available, why removal isn't happening, what could realistically shift the political landscape, and why public engagement matters more than ever. We'll separate fact from speculation, explain the political calculus, and highlight the scenarios that could actually change the game. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a critical update. And if you find this analysis valuable, give us a like and share this video with friends, family, or anyone following the latest in U.S. politics. Your engagement helps us bring more detailed reporting and analysis straight to you. Let's get started. Recent discussions in media and online forums have sparked confusion about the potential removal of former President Donald Trump from office. Headlines suggest imminent action, emergency removal, or a constitutional crisis, but the reality is far more measured and complex. Despite multiple allegations and formal impeachment filings, Trump is not currently being removed from office, nor has Congress issued any formal ultimatum demanding his resignation. Understanding the distinction between documentation and action is key to interpreting the current political landscape. Impeachment context and media confusion. Historically, the House of Representatives has voted on articles of impeachment against Trump, most notably in 2019 and 2021. However, claims circulating online about emergency removal are exaggerated and often misrepresent the constitutional process. The Constitution provides legal mechanisms to remove a president, but these mechanisms require political will, not just legal tools. Media narratives sometimes blur this distinction, emphasizing sensational possibilities over procedural realities. The current situation demonstrates the difference between allegations and actionable enforcement. While the House can investigate and draft articles of impeachment, these actions alone do not trigger removal. This distinction is critical for citizens, political analysts, and media consumers to understand. Existing impeachment resolutions. Multiple impeachment resolutions have been filed against Trump in recent sessions of Congress, reflecting serious concerns among certain lawmakers. Among these is House Resolution 353, which contains 7 detailed articles of impeachment. The charges range from obstruction of justice and corruption to abuse of power and tyranny. These resolutions represent meticulous documentation of alleged misconduct, often supported by extensive evidence and legal argumentation. Yet, as the video in question emphasizes, documentation is not the same as action. Impeachment resolutions can serve as a public record of alleged wrongdoing, but without the political alignment to enforce them, they remain largely symbolic. Calls for resignation versus formal action. Some members of Congress have publicly urged Trump to resign, reflecting both moral and political objections to his conduct. However, Congress as an institution has not issued any formal demand for resignation, nor does such a demand carry legal weight. Public calls for resignation can influence opinion, but they do not equate to constitutional action. In other words, calls for resignation are political signals rather than enforceable mandates. Why removal isn't happening. The current political landscape renders both impeachment and the 25th Amendment as paths to removal effectively blocked. 1. Impeachment. To remove a president, the House must pass articles of impeachment, and the Senate must convict by a 2/3 majority. With Republicans controlling the House and maintaining loyalty in the Senate, a 2/3 conviction is politically unlikely. 2. 25th Amendment. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment allows the cabinet to declare a president unfit for office. However, Trump's cabinet remains largely loyal, making this path improbable. The key factor is not the absence of allegations or constitutional tools. It is the lack of political will. Even extensive documentation of misconduct cannot override the alignment of political power that currently shields Trump. What could change the political landscape? While removal is unlikely under present conditions, several scenarios could alter the balance of power. 1. A dramatic collapse in Republican voter support. Public opinion plays a critical role. A significant loss of confidence in Trump among his base could pressure Republican lawmakers to reconsider their loyalty. 2. A major, undeniable scandal or event. Sudden, undeniable evidence of misconduct, such as criminal convictions or clear evidence of abuse of power, could shift political calculus. 3. Coordinated Republican defections. If influential Republican leaders publicly break with Trump, it could trigger a chain reaction, enabling action by the House or cabinet. 4. Electoral changes in the 2026 midterms. If Democrats regain control of the House, the impeachment pathway becomes feasible, potentially leading to more serious accountability measures. These conditions highlight that accountability is slow, deliberate, and dependent on political circumstances, rather than sudden emergency measures. The real issue: political will. The constitutional framework provides multiple avenues for holding a president accountable, including impeachment, the 25th Amendment, and judicial action. Yet these tools only function when leaders choose to use them. The current gap between evidence of misconduct and enforcement reflects a failure of political courage rather than a failure of the system itself. As the video underscores, the system is under strain, demonstrating the limits of legal mechanisms in the absence of political alignment. The rules exist, but their effectiveness depends on the willingness of elected officials to act. Accountability beyond removal. Even if Trump remains in office, accountability is not entirely deferred. Legal proceedings, civil judgments, and historical documentation continue to matter. The accumulation of evidence, detailed reporting, and public awareness shapes political norms and lays the groundwork for future action. In this sense, impeachment resolutions serve both as warning signs and historical records, informing the electorate and future lawmakers about the scope of alleged misconduct. The narrative of emergency removal is largely a product of media exaggeration. The reality is that Trump remains shielded by political structures that currently favor him, despite extensive documentation of alleged wrongdoing. Impeachment and 25th Amendment action are possible but blocked by political alignment, not legal deficiency. The broader story is one of a system under strain. The constitutional tools exist, but they are ineffective without political will and public engagement. Future accountability will likely be gradual, requiring shifts in public opinion, party loyalty, or electoral outcomes. Until then, the debate continues, highlighting the tension between law, politics, and the principles of accountability in American democracy. Why the system strains under Trump? At the heart of the current situation is a tension between constitutional design and political reality. The U.S. Constitution provides clear mechanisms for removing a president: impeachment by the House, conviction by the Senate, and the 25th Amendment. But these mechanisms were never intended to operate independently of political will. In theory, evidence of wrongdoing should trigger accountability. In practice, political incentives often determine the pace and possibility of enforcement. Trump's case exposes how partisan alignment can shield a leader from consequences, even amid serious allegations. The Republican Party's structural cohesion, through control of the House, loyalty in the Senate, and alignment among cabinet members, creates a de facto institutional immunity. This demonstrates a fundamental reality. Constitutional tools are necessary but not sufficient. Politics decides enforcement. Historical context. Comparing to presidents. Trump's situation is not entirely unprecedented. Historical comparisons provide perspective. Andrew Johnson, 1868, faced impeachment largely over political disagreements post-Civil War. He survived by a single Senate vote. Richard Nixon, 1974, resigned in anticipation of impeachment, following overwhelming evidence and bipartisan loss of support. Bill Clinton, 1998 to 1999, was impeached for perjury and obstruction of justice, but acquitted by the Senate, largely along party lines. These examples illustrate that removal rarely depends solely on evidence. Political alignment and public pressure often prove decisive. Trump's current insulation reflects the consolidation of partisan loyalty to a degree rarely seen in modern history. Political incentives and Republican loyalty. Republican leaders and cabinet members face a strategic calculus. 1. Electoral risk. Acting against Trump risks alienating a large, engaged voter base. Many Republicans rely on Trump-aligned voters for primaries and re-election. 2. Party unity versus institutional integrity. Leaders must balance the appearance of loyalty with long-term institutional credibility. Acting too aggressively against Trump could fracture the party, yet inaction risks undermining public faith in governance. 3. Future positioning. By withholding decisive action, Republicans preserve the option to either distance themselves later or maintain Trump as a political figurehead, depending on electoral shifts. This analysis suggests that loyalty is not purely ideological. It is strategic, often aimed at preserving political capital rather than upholding accountability. The role of public opinion and media public engagement is a critical force in this scenario. Historical patterns show that impeachment and removal often accelerate when public opinion turns sharply against a leader. Social media, 24-hour news cycles, and viral events amplify the perception of crises, but do not guarantee action. Currently, support among Republican voters remains strong, limiting internal party pressure. Media coverage oscillates between sensational claims and detailed legal analyses, sometimes blurring perception of imminent danger. Grassroots movements can shift dynamics, but they require sustained engagement and organization to influence lawmakers. This suggests that political will is both reactive and anticipatory. It reacts to public sentiment, but also anticipates long-term consequences of action or inaction. Institutional resilience versus norm erosion. A deeper lens involves evaluating institutional resilience. The Trump era has tested the boundaries of constitutional mechanisms. Congress can investigate, but may be constrained by partisan control. Courts can adjudicate, but litigation is slow and fragmented. The media informs public opinion, but narratives compete in a polarized environment. This tension exposes a dual reality. The system survives because institutions exist, but norms are eroding because the incentives to enforce them are inconsistent. Future accountability may depend less on immediate removal and more on long-term structural reforms, such as electoral reform, strengthened oversight, or party-level mechanisms for internal accountability. Looking forward, scenarios for change. Building on the original 4 conditions for a shift in political alignment, a deeper analysis shows several intertwined possibilities. 1. Erosion of base support could be triggered by economic shocks, foreign policy failures, or new legal developments. 2. Scandal or evidence may emerge from ongoing investigations at the state or federal level, forcing Republicans to respond. 3. Defections by party leadership may occur incrementally rather than suddenly, creating a tipping point where inaction becomes politically untenable. 4. Electoral shifts in 2026 could fundamentally alter congressional control, enabling impeachment or other corrective measures. In essence, Trump's continued insulation is a product of timing and alignment, not a reflection of the absence of accountability mechanisms. The groundwork for future action is being laid in courts, investigations, and public awareness, but decisive change will likely be incremental rather than dramatic. Accountability as a long game. The Trump case illustrates that accountability in American democracy is a long, complex game. Legal tools provide the framework, but political will determines the outcome. Impeachment resolutions and the 25th Amendment exist as powerful instruments, but without party realignment, public pressure, or electoral shifts, they remain largely dormant. While the immediate threat of removal is minimal, the documentation of misconduct, ongoing investigations, and political debate serve as crucial mechanisms of accountability. History shows that institutional checks often operate slowly but persistently, ensuring that even leaders who evade short-term consequences may face long-term repercussions, both politically and historically. That's a wrap on today's in-depth look at Donald Trump, impeachment, and the limits of political accountability in America. As we've seen, while evidence and allegations exist, political will and the alignment of party, cabinet, and voters ultimately decides whether legal tools like impeachment or the 25th Amendment can be enforced. Accountability is not instant. It is slow, strategic, and heavily dependent on public pressure and electoral outcomes. Remember, even if removal doesn't happen immediately, the documentation of misconduct, ongoing investigations, and public debate play a critical role in shaping political norms for the future. Staying informed and engaged is not just your right, it's your responsibility as a citizen. If you found this analysis useful, don't forget to subscribe to Rapid Report, hit the like button, and share this video with others who want a deeper understanding of today's political dynamics. And drop your thoughts in the comments below. What scenario do you think is most likely to shift the political landscape? Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to Rapid Report, where we bring clarity to the headlines one story at a time.